Hey, I'm Josh Woods, City Council District 6 candidate. On the ballot, which I don't think I mentioned last time, on the ballot for October 5th in a runoff election. So mark your calendars for that day, October 5th. Be here before you know it. Have Stephen Breland here. Stephen's one of our team captains on our campaign, and he's here to hang out and talk, I guess, about some issues with us today.
Yeah, so let's take a few minutes and dive into public safety. Let's start at 10,000 feet, and maybe we can kind of drill down into some specific things. So tell me your general feeling and thoughts about public safety.
Yeah, city specific wise, I think Mobile does a great job of training the police officers and the firefighters and the support personnel, the operators that are sitting out at 911 working for the city. I think that we do a great job as a city of training those individuals. I know that several police officers and also several firefighters that have taken advantage of other areas where they can continue their career with the city of Mobile by going to different courses, and the city really supports them and for kind of more continuing education, more specific to public safety and their aspects. And little known fact that I don't think gets mentioned a whole lot is on the police side of the house and even the fire side of the house, a lot of cities, smaller cities, and other cities in our region, they send their cadets and their future officers over to Mobile to be trained, and so that's a really cool aspect. But as far as public safety, we've been talking about this through the campaign, is we consider it a team sport. It of course it takes the officers or the employees of the city of Mobile that work for public safety, both on fire and police, and also the support personnel like at 911 and things like that. It takes them, and that's their job to look after public safety and address public safety issues. But also it kind of goes back to the community as well. While they're supporting the community also has to support our personnel.
Yeah, I think too many times we put the burden on them when realize that it's two sides.
It is.
To the same coin. So I think that, as the community side of that, I think that's really important that we do our part as the citizens to, reach out and, build those relationships with those different departments so that we, are working together to
That's true.
make things better.
We have awesome personnel, awesome employees with the city in public safety, and but unfortunately they can't be everywhere at all the time. It takes us. We have to, in the neighborhoods, in our micro communities, in our areas of District 6 and across the city, we have to be the eyes and the ears. I kind of throw back to it's a proven fact that really, once a house has a broken window, once a window's broken on a house and it's not addressed, the probability that property turns into full-on blight, it expediates. I mean, it intensifies quickly and more quick and faster. So that's kind of like that falls back on the community side of the house of making sure that we're doing everything we can to provide a safe environment where we live and encourage safety through getting to know our neighbors and being the eyes and ears in our neighborhoods and our micro communities and the places where we live, so that we kind of amplify what the public safety individuals do and their employees do on that side of the house. We're the eyes and the ears, and we let them know when we see something. We need to be vigilant and also support them through really just being there for them. And also on the city council side, I'll support them by making sure that we give them on the city front, give them the amount of money they need to live on. We need to give them ensure there's compensation that matches what they do. That we give them the tools that they need, that ensure that we budget for the tools on the city council side to make sure they have that, a budget for the training, and really just being a vocal support for them and giving them the support they need when they need it.
Talking about just make sure they have the funding that they need. I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard that it's a pretty common thing that folks will go through, say, like the police academy in Mobile, because that training is really, really good.
Yeah.
But then, and not too long ago, they are transferred to other areas because the pay's better. Is that a...
Yeah, I've heard stories talking with people about that, and I think one of the local publications did a really good in-depth story, I guess about 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe, about that issue of really how do you retain the employees? How do you once you train them, how do you keep them? And kind of what that publication kind of looked at, and I really did kind of agree, is that making sure that they have the compensation, that they know the compensation, and that it's it's sufficient, and that they, I mean, really, you think about it, anybody who goes out and wants a job and they want to make that their career, obviously they want to know what their compensation is when they start, but they also want to know that there's room for growth, both professionally, but also, monetary wise, pay wise. So a lot of times I think the city could be, a little guilty, and like any organization can be guilty of really not painting that picture at times for what that career path looks like. I think the city does an excellent job of showing, you can be this, you can do this, this is your rank. But a lot of times I think that, especially on the city council standpoint of looking 10 years down the road and trying to make sure that, you fulfill the obligations and or provide the funding that's needed to make sure that we retain employees. I think that's really going to be key.
Yeah, it's really important. Let's talk about District 6 specifically. What public safety issues do you see as kind of like our big glaring? Yeah,
I think our public safety issue, our biggest public safety issue, is really having to do with the traffic that goes on in District 6 specifically. When District 6 was developed, especially through the 80s and the 90s, as all these neighborhoods were brought online and they were established and houses were built. They were built in, most of the neighborhoods were kind of built in more of a grid pattern where, looks kind of like a checkerboard a lot of times. There might be long rows with north-south or east-west roads that kind of break all those up. And really what that kind of does is that facilitates a lot of times cut-through traffic potentially. In District 6, I think we all can admit that the worst headaches as far as traffic are that Cottage Hill, Hillcrest, Cottage Hill, Hillcrest, Grelot, Cottage Hill, Hillcrest. I think those are our biggest choke points a lot of times on traffic. And the reason that is because, everybody's trying to get where they need to go. District 6 has a good many east-west, but not a whole lot of north-south routes that make it easy to traverse around it. So, not a lot you can really do about that other than kind of focus on making sure that you go back and you potentially put in effect or put into place some design changes for those areas that make it easier for traffic to flow, time the lights up, just like what's going on the airport boulevard plan that's been in place. Time the lights up, look at the common sense things that we need to do, turning into neighborhoods and coming out of neighborhoods that would make traffic easier to merge on or get into a neighborhood. A good example is Chandler Street in Pinehurst. It's a very narrow street and it's hard to get. It's one of the main entrances that people use in Pinehurst. It's really hard to get into, especially if somebody's there waiting at the stoplight. So we definitely would need to look at areas like that kind of plague our district and see what creative solutions we can bring to the table to try to fix that. But after we fix that, we then can look and make sure that the cut-through traffic that's been going through neighborhoods that a lot of times people are very concerned about because of really safety for their neighbors and for their kids, and for their people parked on the side of the road or the streets there. Cut through traffic is an issue. So once we solve the main artery problems of making sure that the main thoroughfares are fixed and it's more efficient and easier to drive on those areas, then we can come back and look at the neighborhoods and say, did we really make a difference, and what more do we need to do in the neighborhood to try to curb any traffic issues? And that's not an immediate thing. It's going to take some time to shape people's behavior. People aren't going to give up something just by saying, well, I heard this is better. It's going to take some time to prove to them, but that's kind of the main public safety issue, I think, in District 6.
Yeah, and on top of being the public safety issue, I think it's also just a quality of life issue as well.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that as we work together to kind of solve those root causes, I think that we'll see improvements.
I think so too. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to cost some money, a good bit of money. It's going to take a good bit of time. It's going to, obviously we need to go and, there's been plans out there before, and when it comes time for feedback, things I think kind of fall to the wayside or don't get addressed. But it's going to take some time. We definitely need to go and get the opinion of the neighbors, get the opinion of the people in District 6, find out, what the touch points are, then go find professionals that we can engage with and say, what's our design that we need to do here? And then really you got to sell the benefit or prove the benefit back to the citizens, and then hopefully we can push that forward a little faster. But it's definitely not an overnight thing. There's a lot of people that you have to engage, departments of the city, citizens, and other organizations and entities that we'll have to bring in. But it's definitely something that I really think we need to focus on. We have to focus on if we're going to continue to grow, and that way we can address any of those issues that once you solve one issue or once you find a solution to one issue, a lot of other issues are going to find solutions as well because you address the major issue.
Yeah, I think it's huge, and when we get to that point, I think things will be better because the initial census data that is out for the newest round of census, it looks like that District 6 has actually grown.
Yeah, I think it's one or two that reported more population. So.
Yeah, so as a city as a whole has actually declined, we've actually grown, and so for us specifically, I think this definitely is for our quality of life, because we are kind of I think the residential corridor, really heavily at least in the district versus some of the other areas of the city.
People who work in City Mobile like to live in District 6, and I think that's evident. That's a fair thing to say. Overwhelmingly, 90% of our area in District 6 is residential. That's a pretty fair statement. So we're definitely the place where people want to live.
Yeah. So this is definitely something that we need to look at with just kind of like I said, public safety in general. So on top of just taking care of the firefighters and the police officers, make sure they have what they have, but then working with them, and then also focusing on some of these issues that actually affect us on our everyday life.
Very true.
So all right, well, perfect. Well, thanks for chatting with me about that, and I look forward to seeing how you're gonna get on that council and help us kind of start solving some of these problems.
Yeah, for sure. October 5th will be here before you know it. So just circle that on your calendar. That's a big day that we have to make sure that everybody knows and our neighbors know that there's one race on the ballot and definitely need to turn out that day.
Absolutely. All right, Josh, I'll see you on October 5th.